parents repeatedly chose my brother, dismissed my milestones for his events, so I never told them about my wedding. Now they're enduring public shame and divorce. You know that gut-wrenching feeling when you realize your own parents don't just love your sibling more, but actively despise you? Well, I lived that my whole life. But when they skipped my wedding for a fake football game, the explosion that followed wasn't just my family falling apart. It was my complete and utter vindication. So, let me tell you about my brother, Mike. He's 21, I'm 27, and he is, to put it mildly, the dictionary definition of a man-child and a mama's boy. He's always complaining, always expecting the world to bow down to him. Just an absolute jerk. From the moment he was born, my parents completely fussed over him. And no, he didn't have special needs or a traumatic birth or anything like that. He just existed. And just like that, I was completely discarded. My mom, especially. She went from being a loving mother to one of those boy moms that everyone makes fun of online. My dad, bless his heart, still showed me some love and support, but he was always too much of a coward to stand up to her, to let me win even once. The only person who ever truly stood up for me was my grandpa. He's 76, and he always called my parents out on their garbage. He never even liked Mike, honestly. Grandpa says I remind him of his late wife, my grandma, and we have this incredibly special bond. But he lives on the other side of the country, so I rarely got to see him. Mike, of course, knows Mom prefers him, and he just loves to rub it in my face. Because of that, and just his overall awful behavior, we were always at each other's throats. He's a spoiled brat, a genuinely awful human being. I can't even count the number of times I got into trouble for things I did better than him, or for things he framed me for. His only real talent? Football. He actually got a scholarship to a nice college out of state for it. Me? My parents didn't spend a single dime on my education. Apparently, my college fund had been used to cover expenses after some fire. Years later, I found out the sickening truth. That money was given to Mike to buy a car and a house. It was at a public university that I met Lucas. He was the first person I was truly drawn to there. Of course, I met other amazing people who are now my dearest friends, and thanks to them and Lucas, who was my best friend for years before we got together, I finally managed to move out of that toxic house. Now, both Lucas and I are pretty well known in our fields and have really good salaries. We worked for everything we have. Okay, so that's the painful background. Now for the main issue. Lucas proposed to me about a year ago. We're both pretty private people, so we didn't plaster it all over social media. When I told my parents, they just dismissed it with a flat, "Oh, that's nice." Honestly, I'm starting to think they didn't even listen to a word I said. We decided we wanted a nice, simple ceremony and reception, just with our friends and relatives. Lucas, being the amazing, hopeful person he is, convinced me to invite my parents and Mike. I sent out the invitations, the real, traditional paper kind. They never responded. Not a word. Every time I went to visit, and I tried to talk about an event I was planning, without even mentioning it was my wedding, just trying to feel them out, my mom would inevitably talk right over me, launching into a monologue about Mike's latest accomplishments and wild adventures. At one point, I just got so fed up. I interrupted my mom and told her that there was this event I was organizing, and the date was absolutely unmovable. Her response? She said they couldn't attend because Mike was playing the last game of the season that very same day, and he needed them to be there. Honestly, the favoritism didn't surprise me. Not one bit. They'd missed my ballet shows, both my high school and university graduations, all for things centered around him. It was just another Tuesday. But this time, at this point, I decided I wanted to be petty. I looked at both my parents and told them, with a sweet smile, that it wasn't a problem at all if they missed this event. I purposefully omitted the fact that this event was my wedding. I didn't insist further. Why bother? They clearly didn't care. Fast forward a few weeks. I got married. And let me tell you, it was absolutely perfect. My chosen family, Lucas's family, and all our amazing friends were there. We had a blast. My grandpa was so happy, so proud to give me away. It was everything I could have dreamed of. My relatives, the ones who actually cared, asked me multiple times why my parents weren't there. I was honest. I simply said they had Mike's game to attend and couldn't come. They gave me some looks, and my grandpa was visibly angry for a while. But other than that, nothing strange happened. After the reception, Lucas and I left for our honeymoon. We were completely phone-free for the whole trip, just soaking in the joy. But once we got back, we discovered that a metaphorical hurricane was waiting to welcome us home. I turned my phone on, and I swear, I couldn't even unlock it before a storm of notifications popped up. Most of them were from my mother and Mike. Mike had called me every nasty name under the sun, insulting me endlessly. Why? Apparently, one of my paternal aunts had posted photos of the wedding on Facebook, and she captioned it with a very obvious, very public dig at my parents, especially my mom, for missing the wedding. The post, somehow, went viral in my parents' community. They had been publicly shamed for their years of mistreatment towards me. And that wasn't all. It also turns out that my grandpa, God bless him, personally visited my parents. He went on an absolute tirade, shaming my father, his own son, to the point of tears. And this, apparently, was my father's breaking point. He was so distraught over missing his only daughter's wedding and facing his own father's disapproval that he finally, rebelled against my mom. He's now threatening divorce unless she makes things right with me. I think that's why my mom had been spamming my phone with messages, first insulting and threatening, then downright pitiful, begging me to forgive her. So, here I am, home with my husband, trying to decide how to approach this absolute mess. Most of my relatives, even those I hadn't invited to the wedding, reached out to apologize for what I went through, claiming they had no idea this was happening at home. And honestly, I can't blame any of them. They all live with my grandpa on the other side of the country or in other states. But my mom's sisters and her friends, they started belittling me for not telling my mom about the wedding, because now she's inconsolable at the thought of having missed it. Personally, I think she just claims that to save face, but I wasn't sure. The latest messages from my father and mother seemed genuinely saddened and hurt. My family is divided on 3 fronts. The majority who are sticking by my side, my maternal aunts shaming me for hurting my mom's feelings, and my maternal grandparents who are adamant that I forgive my mom in light of her atonement. My best friends, meanwhile, are telling me not to listen to any of them. Okay. So I got so much feedback and love on my original post, it was overwhelming. I need to clarify a few things that came up because, honestly, I was just a mess when I wrote it the first time. First, yes, the invitation specifically stated it was a wedding. There are no excuses there. 2, my maternal side of the family didn't come to the wedding either. Most were busy. Others just gave me excuses to send a gift, but not attend. Don't ask me why they didn't discuss my wedding with my mom. It's not like I live in their heads. And third, my mother's atonement. It was literally just an apology via text. Now, onto the update. Things have been absolutely wild this past week. I got off social media for a couple of days to just gather my thoughts, and then I had this incredibly lengthy, deep conversation with Lucas about how to proceed. He has been my absolute rock, and I don't think I could ever love him more than I already do. My parents were always this taboo topic for us, but he hit me with a brutal reality check that I desperately needed. We reached the painful conclusion that the fact I'd kept in contact all this time, stuck around, and just couldn't bring myself to go no contact, wasn't healthy. I've realized that the reason I never fully went in see was because, deep down, I just wanted their approval. Even now. Pathetic, I know, but it's like a drug. Being with my parents, they can be loving, funny, caring, and warm until they're not. That little bit of love they occasionally throw your way just makes you crave more, and you want their approval so badly that you destroy yourself trying to get it. But you know what? That's enough. I promised myself that things are going to change. I've thought about it, and I've decided to start therapy and to go no contact with everyone who made an issue out of this situation for good this time. After dedicating a full day to reflecting on how I truly felt, I ended up messaging my father. I told him that if he wanted to talk, I would meet him, Mom, and Mike in a neutral location the following day. He replied immediately and agreed. We met at a park. My father's sisters and brother came along too, I guess for damage control. My father looked utterly distraught, like he'd been crying for days. My mom looked the same, but I think hers was more out of anger and embarrassment. My brother Mike? He just looked annoyed. I looked at all 3 of them, and I laid it all out. I told them about how their behavior and their blatant preference for my brother had always hurt me. I told them that their abusive behavior had made me realize that I didn't want contact with any of them again. During this, my mother tried to cut me off multiple times, but my aunt, Yes, the one who posted on Facebook. Shut her up every single time. When I asked them straight out, why? Why would you treat me this way? They didn't know what to say. My father just kept crying and apologizing, but offered no answer. My uncle, bless him, reprimanded my dad for it. My mother seemed as if she was asking herself that question for the first time. But well, in the end, she just said that she simply disliked me. Plain and simple. And my brother? He just liked the attention and making me miserable, like it was some kind of sport. Then I went on with my questions. When I asked why they never responded to my invite, they claimed they had never received one. I showed them the texts I sent them, but they denied receiving them. And well, it turns out that they hadn't, in fact, received my wedding invitation. When it arrived at their house, they weren't there. The only one home was my brother, who had come to visit for the weekend. He saw the invite, and just as many of you guessed, he ripped it up and trashed it. And then, when I texted my parents about it, he deleted the messages. It wasn't hard to do, according to him. They kept my chat archived and didn't get the notification. So, my parents never actually got a formal invitation. I was just distraught. I asked Mike why. Why would you do that? And he just shrugged, claiming it wasn't as important as the stuff they had in program anyway. I had to physically stop Lucas from punching him in the face. Strangely enough, my parents were actually upset. They started reprimanding him. Mike, true to form, began to throw a tantrum and cry crocodile tears. And I must admit, I was kind of satisfied watching it. But then, my mom, completely missing the point, claimed that all was resolved. There was no need to fuss over a misunderstanding, and it was time for me to clear their name. That set me off. I interrupted her, shouting that they weren't forgiven at all. Just because Mike trashed the invite didn't automatically cancel out all their years of neglect. Plus, all that time, it was still very obvious that I was having a wedding, and they should have asked about it. You want to know my mother's response? She said something along the lines of, I did hear you talking about a wedding of yours, but I just thought you were being delusional and seeking my attention with exaggerated scenarios. She was convinced Lucas didn't actually like me, nor would ever marry me. When I tell you I was about to trash her face, do you believe me? Then another thing came up. It turns out that my brother didn't have a football game to go to at all. My parents, knowing that Lucas, my friends, and I know little to nothing about football. We prefer soccer, and that I stopped asking about it after Mike would mock me in high school, made up the whole story to avoid my event. At the time I wrote my original post, I couldn't confirm or deny the presence of a game because my brother has private social media and Lucas and I are blocked. I foolishly trusted my parents' word. But no, you want to know where they went with that man-child? They went to Disneyland, because Mike wanted to go. They used the football story to cover for my brother's 100th fun holiday, and apparently, they'd done it multiple times in the past months. At that point, I was just completely burned out, utterly overwhelmed by this torrent of information. The fact that I had been fooled this badly, that I was so genuinely naive, made my blood boil. And I snapped. I stood up and I told my father he was a sad, weak man, unable to stand up for his own kids unless his wife approved of it. I told my brother he was a little jerk, a poor excuse for a man who would accomplish nothing in his life and would always live like the leech he is, babied to the point of uselessness. And to my mom, I told her that she was the worst narcissist, the most pathetic little woman on the earth, that she didn't even deserve to be addressed or judged for her irrelevance, that not even God could help her out because she was just too rotten. Harsh. I know. My mother shot up from her seat to scream at me halfway through my rant to her, but I was just too mad. I shouted at her to shut the hell up and sit down and listen for once. She got so mad, it felt like steam was coming out of her ears. I don't remember much after that, just that I kept talking and talking. It felt as if all my anger and hurt, all those years of pain, just flooded out of me. At one point, I'm pretty sure the whole park went silent. I spat at my parents and Mike that I was disowning them all, and that if they were smart, they'd think twice before reaching out again. I took my purse and left with Lucas, Anna, and Francis, leaving my parents and brother to my aunts and uncle's mercy. I think at some point, the reality of what I had just learned and said finally hit me, because I ended up having a panic attack on the way home. Lucas was driving, so Anna helped me through it until we stopped in a parking lot to calm me down. I am beyond grateful for their help. Once home, I just fell onto the bed and went to sleep. I really wanted to take everyone's advice and post the whole thread on Facebook, but given my work and career, I couldn't expose myself like that. One thing is sharing my story anonymously on Reddit. Another is putting my name and face everywhere. I couldn't go down that path. Instead, I did something much, much better. I made a folder with all of my mother's insults, messages, and awful comments, and I sent it to the woman in charge of my mom's church. It's a tight-knit community, one my mom worked her ass off to enter, but it's also extremely judgmental, and being shunned by them is a death sentence. And well, that's exactly what happened. Just like clockwork, the scandal spread like wildfire, going out of the church and reaching the rest of the small town. You can imagine what this means for my mother and father. Because of my little spill, I did find other messages from my maternal side of the family, belittling me even more for upsetting their sister or daughter and insulting her. I just didn't care anymore at that point. So I followed the advice I received and told them that from now on, they would no longer be part of my life. I told them they could talk trash all they wanted, I just wouldn't care. Instead, they should be grateful I didn't send their nasty texts to their employers and spouses. I blocked every single one of them, grandparents included, on everything. I did find a lengthy message from my father. He apologized for not being strong enough to face my mother, agreed that what I said was true, and couldn't believe that he had lost so much of my life because of her. He told me he was going to divorce her, no matter what my decision would be, because he was tired of being controlled. He would like a relationship with me, to make up for all the years that passed. I did reply to him, telling him that as of now, I really don't want to see him or forgive him. He replied that he'll try his best to win me back and that he loves me. I replied back that as of now, I find that hard to believe. And then I blocked him too. Frankly, his slimy way of trying to find an out from this situation by throwing my mother under the bus is pathetic. At least she was hateful and owned up to it. He's only able to blame others for his choices. I don't want to surround myself with people like that. My mother and brother are blocked similarly. Mike wrote other messages to taunt and insult me, and I just blocked him. My mom threw herself a pity party for being shunned by her community and for her marriage going into shambles, and I just replied, "Good," before blocking her too. As for my grandpa, he has decided to stay with us for a while, to stick by my side. He really is the best, and he actually read some of your comments. He isn't going to admit that he's flattered by them though. Since then, a few days have passed, and all has been quiet. Lucas is spoiling me rotten, and I'm starting therapy very, very soon. So that's my story. It's been a whirlwind, and honestly, a massive relief. What do you guys think? Have you ever had to draw such a hard line with family, even when it feels like your world is ending? I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments below.